One man I've spoken to regularly about Brexit and about this election and his increasing frustration at the media political class in his own country is the editor of Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill. He joins me now live from London. Brendan, you must feel very much vindicated and feel as if the people of Britain have finally had their say emphatically.
Yeah, I really think it's a great result. I think we're witnessing the revenge of democracy. You know, for 3.5 years since we voted for Brexit, we've been told by the political class we made a stupid decision, we were racist, we were xenophobic, particularly working class voters in the north and working class voters in Wales. They were told that they had been hoodwinked by tabloid newspapers, led astray by demagogues, misled by adverts on the sides of buses and so on and so on. And now those people have wreaked their revenge on the political establishment that has been insulting them for 3.5 years. And those people have said, we still want Brexit, we are defying you, we will not put up with your insults anymore, and you have to give us the exit from the European Union that we have democratically demanded.
And apart from being insulted the way you so vividly described there, they've also had an immense amount of effort launched at trying to convince them of the error of their ways, to win them over. And that's come from media interests, it's come from academics, it's come from political parties, including, of course, strong elements of the Conservative Party. But in the end, they've stuck to their guns and their own wisdom, and they're going to get their way.
Absolutely right. You know, the pro-EU propaganda has been relentless, and the anti-Brexit propaganda has been relentless. We've had it for 3.5 years. People have been bombarded with this every single day. Scare stories, fear-mongering, hysteria, basically, from the media and political elites, telling us that if we go ahead with Brexit, it's the end of the world as we know it. And people just said, no, we don't believe you. We're thinking for ourselves. We're going to make up our own mind, and we're going to vote for Brexit again. That's the most extraordinary thing. You start to ask yourselves, how many times do we have to vote for Brexit? We voted for it in 2016, of course. We voted for it in the general election of 2017, when 80% of the votes went to parties that promised to deliver Brexit. And now we voted for it again by going overwhelmingly for Boris Johnson, who was the leader, saying, I will take us out of the EU. Those are 3 massive national votes to leave the European Union. If we don't leave now, then serious questions are going to be asked about democracy in this country.
Boris Johnson is a unique politician, and it's been an incredible career thus far. He was a very prominent and lively backbencher while he was editing the Spectator magazine. He rose to become Foreign Minister. He was Lord Mayor of London, often talked about as a possible leadership contender. When he got the leadership in really chaotic circumstances, he had knockers from near and far saying he would never succeed. But he seems to have been the man for the times to reconnect his party with the wishes of the people.
It really is quite extraordinary. You know, the CORBYNista movement, the kind of the army of middle-class pseudo-radical agitators around Jeremy Corbyn, they always say Boris is a toff, Eton-educated, a former member of the Bullingdon Club at Oxford University, completely out of touch with ordinary people, and he's proven them wrong. He has connected with vast numbers of people, including vast numbers of working-class voters. The most exciting thing in this election is the complete and utter collapse of the Red Wall. The Red Wall is that long terrain of Labour seats stretching from North Wales throughout the north of England, where there have been Labour MPs for decades. One of them has not had a Tory MP for 134 years. Today it does. The Tories have won virtually all of those seats from working class people. And Boris this morning was very gracious. He said to those working class voters, I know your hand will have quivered on the ballot paper when you were voting for Tory. I know you don't normally do this, but you can trust me. I'm humbled by your vote, and I will do my best to live up to your expectations. The working classes have utterly abandoned the Labour Party, and that is a political realignment of historic proportions.
You know, while the Brexit issue obviously dominated, though, there was a very extreme policy agenda put up under Jeremy Corbyn. He was described by Greg Sheridan, the Australian's foreign editor, who you would know. Greg Sheridan described him as communism in a cardigan, which I thought was particularly apt. So to what degree was it the extreme policy agenda of Labor that contributed to this result, as well as the Brexit issue?
I think one thing that working class Labour voters in particular don't like about Jeremy Corbyn, they see him as untrustworthy, they don't like his personality, they don't like his policies, they also don't like the way in which he has hijacked the Labour Party, the party that their forefathers founded, the party that was founded to represent working class voices. He has allowed it to be hijacked by this new section of the middle classes who are supposedly very radical, very woke, very identitarian, very divisive. They have anti-Semitic elements in them, as we all know, and they've seen their party be taken over by these university graduates with their kind of woke posturing, and they really, really don't like that. And I think what working class voters are saying to Labour is, look, you turned your back on what we consider to be important values: community, democracy, family, patriotism, the ideals upon which the Labour Party was founded. And the Corbynista movement has allowed Labour to become this fairly rotten, divided, radical outfit that working class people don't want. So the Labour Party now has to have a very serious reckoning with itself. It needs to get rid of the the layer of Corbynistas and allow itself to come back to normalcy if it ever wants to win back some of those votes.
Yeah, if we go back to the Brexit referendum, I remember in the wake of that, the share market plummeted, the pound plunged. People were talking about all the economic instability. They recovered over following weeks, of course. We've had the opposite now, of course, with all the frustration in delivering Brexit. Now this thumping victory to Boris Johnson has been welcomed by the markets and the pound is going up. So even though, of course, Brexit will be difficult to deliver, of course it will create some difficulties in financial markets and other government dealings, but the markets are seeing that it's a good thing, something that's a positive contribution to not just the UK economy, but the global economy.
I think what people are really crying out for, and this is all people, including markets, bankers, ordinary people, everyone, they really want stability. They want Britain to go back to being a stable country. You know, everyone, not everyone, but the Remainer elites would say that the cause of the instability in Britain over the past 3 years was Brexit. But that's not true. The cause of the instability was the political class's failure or unwillingness to institute Brexit, which gave rise to this long period of delay and dither and frustration and a situation where nothing was getting done. Businesses didn't know what the future of Britain would look like. None of us knew what politics would turn into because everything was being held up. Everyone now wants stability. They want things to actually happen, and Boris says he will make them happen.
Now, Brendan, you're a student also of American and Australian politics, and you've seen the way Trump has tapped into mainstream voters, and Scott Morrison managed to save the coalition government in Australia by doing the same thing. Do you see many similarities in Scott Morrison, Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, or at least the way that they've connected with the electorate?
Absolutely. I think we are witnessing the rise of
I'll
what
throw
some
to
people
the
refer to as
protest
populism
package
or
as an intro
a kind
to
of
Claire.
ballot box, a ballot box of rebellion. It's basically a ballot box rebellion against the old establishment, against the technocratic elites, against the Hillary Clintons and the woke elites in Australia, the woke elites in the UK. And we're seeing it across Europe too. People are sick and tired of the old political system and they're crying out for something new. And I think the more that this goes on, the better it will be for the political life of all of these nations.
I wonder what this might mean for the so-called Anglosphere in the future. I wonder, we'll obviously look at a free trade deal between the UK and the US. Australia will be lining up for a free trade deal with the UK as well. These leaders are all conservative, lead conservative parties, all think about sovereignty and the nation state in similar ways. We could see an increased level of cooperation in the Anglosphere, with the odd man out being Justin Trudeau, I suppose.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for, and I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for. I think one thing that people are sick and tired of are the kind of globalist institutions in which nations were expected to pool their sovereignty and give up their decision-making, outsource their sovereignty, in essence, to these kind of foreign bodies, whether it was the European Union or whatever else it might be. What people are interested in now is defending national sovereignty, defending national democracy, so that their democratically elected governments can make deals with other democratically elected governments. I don't think we're going into a period of little Englandism. I don't think we're going to close off from the world. I think there's now greater potential than ever for the UK to have open discussions with nations like Australia and the US and really come up with new bonds across the world which are based on democracy and our own shared interests, rather than being filtered through these very PC institutions that people have had enough of.
Brendan, just finally, Boris Johnson leading a party that's been really fractured in recent times. It's been through turmoil, of course. Does the strength of this victory means that he's pretty much unchallengeable for the time being, that he will be able to govern with a really strong hand and with great stability and certainty for at least the first part of this term?
I think so. I think he will have he's obviously pushed back the challenge from Labour. He's pushed back the challenge from sections of his own party that are very pro-Remain. He's made it clear, or the nation rather has made it clear, that they want Brexit to happen, that they trust him to get it done, and all eyes will be on him to make sure that he does that. Now, of course, a strong-handed PM can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing if they think they can get away with things they probably shouldn't get away with. So the people will need to keep putting democratic pressure on him to make sure he does what he says he's going to do. There could be a bit of a threat from the SNP, who will be very, very emboldened by their superb result in Scotland. But I think, for the most part, Boris has the right this morning to feel in control of the nation, to feel trusted by the people, and to get on with the agenda that he has promised to deliver.
Well, thanks for joining us again, Brendan, and also congratulations to you on your commentary throughout all of this. You've been on the money, you've had your finger on the pulse, you've understood where all this is going right through periods when you're almost a lone voice, and your commentary has enabled people to see what was unfolding here, and there it is. So thanks so much for sharing your insights with us, Brendan.